Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of my game dev series, where I take you along the ride of creating my very first own game. If you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, I highly recommend checking them out first to see what I've created so far. Before we get started, I want to apologize for taking longer with this video. Lately, I've been very busy with coursework for my uni degree, such as this one, where I was given a fictional situation of an asteroid being on a collision course with Earth and having to launch a rocket to deflect it. A lot of fun and a lot of calculations. Anyways, I did manage to make some significant upgrades to my game. Let's take a look at our current game. Ew, that doesn't look very pleasing. We have a very green grassy platform with some ugly looking water around it. So as I mentioned in the last video, it's time to give my game a new look, and this is what I'm working on right here in the background. One of the main issues is that the game looks static. Especially the water doesn't look anything like water, since it's just a blue rectangle. So I decided to give it a bit more texture, and most importantly, adding some waves to it. I managed to do that by creating a shader that I apply to the water that makes the pixels move slightly up and down, as well as left and right. But it definitely wasn't an easy task. I played around with the colors and strength of the waves a lot. Sometimes the water was too bright, and then again, after some changes, it was too dark. I was never really happy with it. But then I encountered a really weird problem. If you look at the water, you can see it moving very strongly and revealing a blank texture. To fix this problem, I had to make sure that the water was its own 16 by 16 texture and not part of an atlas texture that has other pixels around it. But I managed to fix it, so it's all good now. Well, let's have a look at the new version. It looks so much better already. And you should have also noticed that I completely reworked the grass tiles. I also added a dirt path across the grass, and I think this makes a huge difference in comparison to the previous look of our game. If you zoom in on the rocks, which are under the water, you can see their texture moving ever so slightly to the right and left, which causes the idea of waves flowing over them. What a success! Now, on to the next point of my bucket list for this video. Creating an environment to fight against the slimes that I've created last video. I chose to create somewhat of a cave, and here you can see my first version of it. I quite like it already, and I also ensured that the player can't escape the cave through the walls, and he is still able to fight the slimes. Next, I wanted the cave to feel darker and a bit mysterious, with a subtle glow around the player. If that sounds confusing, don't worry, it will make more sense when you see it. Alright, let's first start by adding a canvas layer and changing its color to something gray and bluish. And now the cave already looks darker. Now I add this point light to the player and choose a white circle image that will be the light source. As you can see, I have a couple of settings on the left side of the screen. For example, this slider called energy, and what it does is quite obvious. It affects how strong the light will be. And the other one, called texture scale, determines the light's radius, so how far it will shine. This is a very iterative process, so you can see me loading the game again and again, and just checking if I like the current settings or if I should change something. Now, I will also add a similar light source to the slimes. Since it's the same process, this time it only takes a few seconds. And now I have to configure the settings again. So I load into the game, and I feel like it's too bright. So I turn the texture scale and energy down. But no, this is way too much. Now we don't have any glow anymore. So back again to changing the settings. And with one more final change, I can test it again. And this time, I actually quite like it as it is right now. Next, I wanted to make it so that the cave and the grass scenes are independent, as if they are two completely different parts of the game's world. And to travel between them, I made it so that the player can enter and leave the cave through a door which is connected to a hole in the grass scene. And as it being shown here, it works quite smoothly. But before I show you some final bigger changes that I made to the cave, let's quickly take a look at what I've improvement this episode is going to be visually. First, we had this ugly green and blue rectangles that symbolize grass and water, but those were certainly not pleasant to look at. Then I've upgraded the grass to more pleasing colors, and it also matches with the trees now. And then for a final change, I upgraded the water and gave it some shaders, and now it looks so much better. Let's have a little test playing session. I can still farm items like rocks and trees and pick them up into my inventory. And I can travel into this new big cave. But one has to be careful with all these slimes spawning around you in this cave. But as you can see, I also added a new resource, which is gold, and it too can be mined and picked up. However, there are still some bugs that appeared, such as after the slimes were killed, they don't respawn at their initial positions, but they end up all in this top left corner. But I will fix this soon. Now, this is all the progress I've made since the last video, and now let's take a look at the plans for the next episode. I plan on creating the first NPC that gives the player some quests to go caving and farm some materials. Furthermore, I want to add some in-game currency, which is most probably going to be some gold coins. And this can be traded for some materials like rocks, gold, and also be used to buy new gear that will be better. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and also leave a comment if you have some further ideas on what I should include into my game. Again, make sure to check out my other videos if you haven't done it yet, and I will see you in the next episode.